Welcome to another episode of the Angels Positivity and Love Show. Incredible guests the world over with amazing insights, experiences, and high vibe frequency, their experiences, their hearts, their love that they're sharing with all of us. Today, no exception, coming to us from Connecticut, most likely, New England for sure. We have a financier or Wall Street finance type, deeply experienced or seasoned on that front, whether it was the Lehman crisis or other matters. But he's a teacher in meditation, mindfulness, and much more. He spent 3 years in India studying under various teachers. He's going to share those experiences with us. He's a wonderful fellow, deeply intuitive, uh, deeply seasoned on this front as well. And he loves sharing, and he has a great sense of humor. Michael Jaliman, great to see you again. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks you for having me.
Okay, you've got two tremendous backgrounds and you're still practicing um, your meditation techniques and love teaching others balance, harmony, peace, inner peace, how to tap what they've got within. And yet you've led a very formal career in finance and everything else. Take us through the big picture of both careers, if you could, briefly, because we'd love to dive in on how did you get onto the spiritual path in the first place?
Well, I'll start with how I got onto the spiritual path in the first place. So I had been at the University of Wisconsin. As a freshman, I was elected president of the student body, which I never heard of anyone doing before or since. And it was a large university with 35,000 students. And from that position, I was also chairman of the United Front, which was all of the radical groups opposed to the Vietnam War and supporting civil rights. And as a spokesperson who called for Nixon's impeachment, along with some other student body presidents, there was also a bombing of the Army Mathematics Research Center at the University of Wisconsin, the time when I was president, which put four people on the FBI's most wanted list. And for example, the chancellor had me make a statement, asked me to, and there was like reporters and TV cameras from like more than 100 media outlets at that event. But I was multiple times on national news, which was before there was cable or internet. So many people were watching network news back in the day, being a spokesperson against the Vietnam War. And I then spent my junior year abroad in Israel. And one of the professors at Hebrew University had been a professor at the University of Wisconsin named Maurice Zeitlin. He was the Latin American Affairs for Ramparts magazine, which was a left-wing journal at the time, an important one. And under him, I was getting credit for living in the Sinai Desert, learning about a Bedouin tribe that lived there, doing a field study. I was also doing studies in astrophysics with a professor, a tutorial, one-on-one, and studying Einstein's theory of relativity. So I was snorkeling during the day and leaving the human world, going into like the fish world, and then just studying, seeing at night, literally thousands or more stars at night. So the heavens feel very close. I was doing some hatha yoga, but I was just a physical exercise for myself. I had no interest in spirituality. I believed in science. And, in studying and contemplating Einstein, I had this thought which came from, I don't know where. What if the truth I was seeking, because I was always a truth seeker, I couldn't find through the intellect? And then my mind stopped, and then life opened up in front of me. Everything became quite magical. When I went back to Jerusalem, my astrophysics professor's wife noticed that something had changed with me, and she gave me this book by a man named Gurdjieff, Meetings with Remarkable Men. And he also came from a scientific orientation and then went out and met spiritual masters. Then someone gave me this book of Ram Dass, who was Richard Alpert, along with Timothy Leary. Um, wrote this book, Be Here Now, which was a big book at that time. So I said, hey, if there's really masters of wisdom like this, I want to go meet them. And then I did go out to India and did 3 years of intensive meditation. Um, Years later, I came back to India and to Asia for 9 years with my family. So I did have an, early career in finance, worked for an investment bank, a brokerage firm, worked as a management consultant for McKinsey, which was a prestigious consulting company. Um, and then later, let's see what else. Worked with this for a venture capital firm as an executive vice president, a venture capital firm in California, and then made some money. I also had a software company at the early days of the personal computer industry. It was word processing. Before that, everyone had word processing. We're working with Houghton Mifflin, the big publishing company. They were going to go into software. Then some geniuses there decided software was a fad, personal computers was a fad, and they should pivot back to book publishing. So they never marketed our software that we developed. But I made some money, and then I took my family back to Asia for 9 years. So that's sort of the balance with back and forth with finance and management consulting. But in the course of my career, some of it before, some of it after, I've worked for companies like IBM, revamping their whole marketing system, um, creating a database out of hundreds of databases, literally hundreds of people around the world at IBM internally, working on this. I was the chief organizational consultant, or revamping how JP Morgan spent billions of dollars on technology. That was like another assignment. So I've definitely, been on both worlds. In the Tibetan world, the Tibetan Buddhist world, where I'm empowered by Dudjom Rinpoche, who was the teacher of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the head of the Nyingmapa school of Tibetan Buddhism. And there, it's a very simple practice called Dzogchen, which is the most advanced of the Tibetan practices and part of the Dalai Lama's own personal practice. And it's far simpler than a lot of the complex visualizations that you do at earlier stages in Tibetan Buddhist practice. And it has similarity to the Theravadan Buddhist tradition of insight meditation or Vipassana that I'm also trained as a teacher in, studying for some years and doing retreat for 3 years intensively with Anagarika Munindra in Bodh Gaya and then other places in India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka.
Talk to us about a moment in India or Sri Lanka. It could have been a nighttime dream, could have been a vision, could have been in human form, a person with sparkly eyes, and it was wonderful. What encounter did you have with the universe? What happened?
Well, there was an encounter. I was doing a retreat in a cave where the Buddha was said to have spent, every summer, every rainy season for many years. And I was meditating there, living on a little straw mat with a sleeping bag and meditating all day long. And then some people came and told me there were dacoits or bandits in the area who could take whatever little I had and perhaps harm me. So I went up to the top of a hill where there was a temple built, a Buddhist stupa by the Nichiren school of Buddhism. They do the chanting Namum Myoho Renge Kyo, and I went up there and chanted pretty intensively for a couple of days, banging a huge drum, not like a little cymbal that echoed sounds throughout the valley. Um, And, at one point, I saw these lights. I was with someone. This was a bit before, and I saw these lights go from one end of the horizon to the other, like following an arc. And the other person I was with was like someone who was like an Indian, but a physics major. And neither of us could explain what it was. There weren't like planes in this area. There's no lights. It's very dark in this area. And to both of us, it seemed like some form of, planetary travel that we saw in the sky, moving like in an arc from one end to the other. It would have been like zipping by. It moved kind of so fast, but it moved in this arc gently from one end of the horizon to, one edge of the horizon to the other edge of the horizon in a short period of time. But then later, I had an experience of like the heavens opening up and just hearing all of this celestial music, very, very powerful and real, as real as any music that one would hear now on, stereo loudspeakers or something. And just had an experience where like reality as I knew it was shattered, and I was taken to a place beyond anything that I had ever experienced, really something like that what the Buddhists call nirvana, which was like the cessation of all of this. And it was pretty profound.
Take us through a little bit of that flavor. It's okay to spend some more time on this. This
Well, it was
sounds
interesting though too, because just I've gone a little forward. Then on the bus going back to the ashram in Bodh Gaya where I was staying, I met this young woman, and we ended up having an amorous connection for the next hours. She was coming from having worked with Mother Teresa
mm,
in India, so she was high in her own kind of way, and we had an amorous bus ride back. So
mhm.
just the loving energy was just very strong. I don't normally, it's that experience I'm describing to you is like literally 50 years ago. And for some reason, it's quite sacred. And then have viewed it as special. And then I don't even like think about it. So I haven't recreated it in my life.
Mm.
But it was just this other realm of existence, like this celestial realm that was just as real as the physical realm is up on that, mountaintop, that hilltop. It wasn't a big mountain, a hilltop in India 50 years ago.
Mm.
And, you talk about joy. I mean, it was an experience that was like fully filled with joy, with bliss, and with deep presence, with a deep sense of being present to everything going on in life energetically.
The next question, it's kind of like $1 trillion question, but you're going to handle it. No problem. You're in finance, so you got this.
Yeah, these $1 trillion, the government runs up $1 trillion debt here and there. One of these days, here a trillion, there a trillion, we'll be talking real money.
Exactly. Presence, your connection to all there is, compassion for all is life. Talk to us about trees, nature, ebbs and flows either during the day, week, as you travel, as you do meditation. Try to tackle this somehow so the audience can get an appreciation for the depths of the moment itself.
Well, that's a tall order, but nature is an energy, particularly in its pure form, where it's not despoiled and where it's just natural settings, that there's a deep silence that can be present there. There's also the sound, say, of the ocean itself. And that sound or that quietness has a power with a silence of a place where the vibrations are very still and pure for that quality of deep presence to emerge, or if you've been exposed to it and introduced to it profoundly, for it to deepen and for it to gently arise within nature. So nature is that very beautiful, energetic place that is important for balance on the planet, as well as for producing oxygen and for, keeping the planet cool. And from a systems perspective, keeping the planet, the climate here is like, the most important thing to do on the planet, more important than like limited kinds of things that may be very important, income inequality or this war or that war. Because if we don't preserve the climate of our planet, we can make things be very difficult for human beings here, and even potentially in the future lead to the extinction of human life. One of the profound people I met and mentored with, if you like, was Jonas Salk, who developed the polio vaccine, which back in the day, in the 50s, 60s, was more important and impacted society even more powerfully like than AIDS in later decades, because it was transmitted through swimming pools. I don't know that people knew that right then. And people were paralyzed and people died. And he created this polio vaccine and was, a big American hero for the years to come. And when I met him and we interacted and he quizzed me and interviewed me, he then gave me the task of creating the Salk Institute for Applied Creativity, for metaphysics. There was already in La Jolla, California, a major Salk Institute for Biological Science, which had Nobel Prize winners on it, a large, like university-sized campus. And he wanted to create something equivalent for metaphysics, for applied creativity, combining the scientific method with the non-dual aspect of the spiritual teachings. And he entrusted me with that.
We're going to do a quote for you, not a random quote, but if you'll give me half a second here, I'm going to read a quote from India. I'm not sure how far back this goes, but I'll do the best I can on pronunciation too. Siddha Katrapa. And the quote is, and I'd love to get your reaction to this, and we'll do some easy quotes too. Whatever the yogin sees is his instruction and realization that all he sees is unborn. That is the most excellent guru. Innocence is the way to realize non-duality. For here the effects of virtue and vice are one. And one more quote. Learn to take life really one moment at a time. The first one or the second one, where do you want to take us?
Well, yes, the experience of the unborn nature. The unborn nature is that same zone of presence that we've been talking about or alluding to. The unborn nature is other words for the exact same space, which another way of describing it is when you're aware, which is part of what you do in insight meditation. In insight meditation, you have like an awareness of the sensations in your body, of thoughts that you're feeling, of emotions that arise, of things that you're seeing. In the Dzogchen teaching, which we call the sort of advanced insight meditation, you're taking awareness itself as your focus. So you're being aware that you're aware. And that is an approach that's very conducive to experiencing the unborn nature. In addition, having a sense of compassion, having compassion for all beings, sensing the purity, the unborn nature in all beings, having that compassion is also a good pathway, again, for the unborn nature to arise. So the compassion is both the result of the unborn nature, but it's also a path to the unborn nature. And the path to the unborn nature is also described by some teachers as the pathless path. So it's something you have to take moment by moment. There's really no path. It's to be there instantaneously each moment, and the opportunity each moment to be there in that unborn state.
Beautiful. Tell us about one of your teachers.
So the 16th Karmapa was this man. He was the first of the incarnated Tibetan lamas in all of Tibetan history. His lineage goes back before the lineage of the Dalai Lama. And he was like a cosmic being with unbelievable energy field and knowing and love and power. And he was universally respected as an extremely advanced soul, by the Tibetan people and by, the other Tibetan masters, and a very magical being. He came to the United States, and I had the great good fortune of spending time with him. And there was a big New Agey, pre-New Age organization called EST, Earhart Seminar Training, which had many celebrities and hundreds of thousands of people who did it. And they had an EST Foundation, and I had the good fortune to be in charge for the EST Foundation for a portion of His Holiness's visit. So I was in charge of who got to see him and who didn't, and to travel with him. And it was just very miraculous. We'd be on a train and people would walk up to him and open and tell their, deep things of their life and ask questions. People who weren't Buddhist or had any, spiritual training. This was in the, mid 70s. So it wasn't like the country was even particularly open to spiritual things, even to the degree that it is now. But he was just extraordinarily, powerful. And then Dujam Rinpoche, who was a teacher of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and the head of the Nyingmapa school, which is the original school of Tibetan Buddhism that goes back to the master Guru Rinpoche, who brought Buddhism to Tibet from India and had miraculous powers. His mantra is Oma Hung, Benza Guru, Pema Siddhi Hung, Oma Hung, Benza Guru, Pema Siddhi Hung. And one is allowed to repeat that mantra without being given it in an initiation by the Tibetans. To do many of the practices, you have to have done an initiation. And one of the initiations that the Karmapa did, which is online, that I'd recommend that people watch, it's called the 16th Karmapa doing the Black Crown ceremony, in which time he puts on this black hat that was given to him by one of his disciples, who was one of the emperors of China, made out of the hair of angelic women beings that this Chinese emperor, disciple of the previous Karmapa, saw. And so he puts this hat on, and in it then transmits an enormous field of miraculous energy and compassion.
Talk to us about the fields and what it's like walking through the field, being in the presence of the field, or both. Auras, seeing light on people, seeing light on nature, trees. For you, has it always been make it stop, make it stop, make it stop because you're seeing light everywhere? Is it only on Saturdays? Is it whenever you drop to here and you wish to see light or auras on people? And did you ever tap into that a little bit, or did you not even need to for reading people who you may want to do business with or not want to do business with? Did you use a barometer that way a little bit? Can you cover that high, low, left, right?
It's a big circle. High, low, left, right. Okay. Um, I feel and sense more the energy of people. Um, One of my teachers asked me if I wanted to see more, which in his reality, or what he was going to teach me, would have meant seeing more celestial things, but also seeing more of the negative energies on the planet. That by opening my sight, working with him, it would have opened to both. And since I thought I didn't want to see more of the dark side, I didn't take that course of study. Now, sometimes I do see things, and one person, if people of an older age might remember, was a man named Colin Powell,
Mm.
who gave a speech at the UN saying that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and that we had evidence for that. And I did actually see really a big white aura around Colin Powell. And at some conference that I went to, some very exclusive event where he was one of the speakers. It was during the dot-com time and companies had enormous money. And we were in some gorgeous resort someplace. And then I got to speak with him for 45 minutes at a dinner that they put on, and people would come up, but no one else came like I did and could have a full-on discussion about foreign policy issues with him. And I think that he was a pretty high, pretty pure, good being. Um, by coincidence, one of the people I worked with at McKinsey and Company, which is this top management consulting firm, worked on the Defense Policy Board, working for the Secretary of Defense. I have been offered to work for them as well. This is the only part of the US government, at least in the past, I don't know that it's changed. They advise the Secretary of Defense. There were people on it like Henry Kissinger and George Shultz, who had also been Secretary of State, and Pete Wilson, who had been governor of California, and this man, Jerry Hillman, who had been my boss at McKinsey and Company. And they get paid nothing and no expenses reimbursed. So there's not 1 cent expenditure, and it was not therefore under congressional oversight. Now, this is not some story I'm making up or some conspiratorial nonsense. It's true. I don't know if the government's changed it since, but I was offered to do work for him. I wouldn't have been paid. I wouldn't have had expenses reimbursed. But I just learned from his daughter, who I met recently, that in closed sessions of the Defense Policy Board, he was one of two people who argued that we didn't have enough evidence of the weapons of mass destruction to come to that conclusion.
Mm.
But the government came to that conclusion and presented that evidence, which turned out not to be true. It turned out that Saddam Hussein was pretending to have them. So we thought he would have them, so we would leave him alone, not so that would cause us to invade him.
Mm. Very interesting.
And just another little anecdote that I've never certainly talked about publicly. Before the US invasion, I went back to Nepal and met with some of the biggest, most important Tibetan masters and made cash offerings to each of them to pray to protect the American troops, explaining about Saddam Hussein, who they thought was kind of demonic from describing the things that he did. And they did prayed. And in the International Herald Tribune, the morning, the day of the attack, it's literally said, I should have saved it, that the wind was blowing towards the American troops and that mysteriously then it changed
Mm.
so that they didn't use poison gas against us because it was then blowing back towards the Iraqis.
Mm.
So I can't say definitively that that's what did it, but these were, many of the most important spiritual masters in Tibet, from Tibet. And then also just another interesting tidbit for any people who are art fans, Sam Francis, who was an important abstract expressionist painter, sold, billions of dollars worth of paintings in his lifetime, is in major museums. He was the person who funded my trip and funded the donations to those spiritual masters.
Oh, I like that. Can you take us into a minutia of some sort of Tibetan ceremony? It could be as simple as tea, how you sit, what the air was like when you were sitting in a certain place at a certain time long ago, maybe. A little bit of ZG, a little bit of brilliance to it, a little bit of sparkle, something that you can't forget. It was almost as if time would stop when that either happened one time or often.
There was a teacher named Chatral Rinpoche, Chatral Rinpoche. He was the teacher of the regent of the Dalai Lama. So when the Dalai Lama was in charge in Tibet when he was young, then he had a regent, someone who ruled in his name until he became 18 or however 16. I don't know what the age of maturity was for becoming exercising the power of the Dalai Lama, but Chaltrul Rinpoche was the guru of this person and universally respected among the Tibetan masters, an extremely, powerful master. And at one point, I was in the mountains with him, where there was a group of Tibetans who were going to be going into a 3-month, 3-week, 3-day meditation retreat. Um, very strict, shut off from the rest of the world, to a group of people, and they were being given empowerments. And I was one of some others who weren't going to be going into the retreat, along with my wife and my son and a number of other Westerners, and some other Tibetans who, in this remote place in the foothills of the Himalayas, where we received the empowerments from another man named Dodrup Chen Rinpoche, Dodrupchen. People can look both of them up on the internet and get blessings from them because they're both very, very powerful, important masters. And the first master brought the second master to give these whole series of empowerments over a number of couple of weeks. And it was just very magical, the presence, the energy there. Each day was quite miraculous.
Mm. Maybe we'll light some sage now, but if you would allow the sage to have an extra flavor to it of flowers or even Tibetan air, Nepalese air, whatever your favorite is. I'll light some sage. And just let us know when you catch something beyond the sage that reminds you of either Tibet or extra or flowers or a separate fragrance. And people at home can catch the sage, but you can ask for extra from the universe, from angels, from other loving figures, whoever's important to you or whoever you want to bring in that's love and above. Ask them to make you flowers. The ocean, if you love the ocean, it could be Hawaii and aloha. But this is a thematic Tibet, Nepal, etc., Himalayan mountains. Catch a beautiful vibe from there. What are you getting, Michael?
I'm back there in some of the caves in the foothills of the Himalayas.
I love it. I'm going to snub this out. And can you talk to a person on a practical level daily, 3 small steps they can take to let go more, to appreciate more, to grow their awareness, not their thinking?
I would suggest that a simple practice that everyone can do is to cultivate awareness of their breath, to look at the breath as it comes in and out the nostrils or in and out from the abdomen, at the beginning of the breath, with the exhalation, with the inhalation, and follow either the breath coming in and going out at the nostrils or at the abdomen. And then as thoughts arise, just let them pass. And look, you can do this exercise with your eyes closed and focus more strongly on the awareness of the breath, inhalation, exhalation, inhalation, exhalation, or you can do it with your eyes open and look to see a sense of awareness around you, to see that unborn state. You can do it either way, either with eyes closed or with eyes open. And if you have a hard time concentrating and making that happen, you can count like 1 inhalation, 1 exhalation, 1, 1, 2, 2, and then you count up to 7 breaths. and then you start again. And if you find that your mind's distracted, like after number 4, that the thoughts have carried you away, start again with number 1. So to strive to build your concentration such that you can be aware of your breathing and nothing else without anything. I mean, there could be other hearing, other sounds that you're aware of at the same time, but without losing the concentration on the breath.
How do you like to describe, this is another $1 trillion question, but how do you like to describe the universe, the cosmos, our place on planet Earth? And there's an extra dimension to this, pun intended. Are we the only casino on the Vegas Strip? You don't have to, that's humanity. We're talking about humanity. Are we the only action in town? Our thinking is the pinnacle of everything, or is there a broader reality? And you don't have to answer everything. You can answer any part of it. You can go for the whole $1 trillion prize here. How do you like to tackle this one?
Well, humans are the highest embodied beings in the physical form on planet Earth. We're capable of spiritual ascension and awareness and of creating inventions and flying and going to other planets and being able to destroy all human life or maybe even destroy the planet one day. But we are the most evolved life form. And on the physical plane, there are non-physical beings, angelic realms and dark realms around. Um, we're not the only intelligent beings in the universe. There's other intelligent beings. Again, I've seen ships of those. Again, I haven't been inside, but I had dinner with a woman one time who had a PhD, very sane, whatever person who claims to have gone in a ship, German woman. I had no reason to doubt her. She was, very logical and grounded, didn't seem, out there at all, but I can't say for sure. But I believe that there's other life forms that visit our planet. Again, I don't know that for sure. But again, in the spiritual teachings, and I'm sure that I have a high degree of certainty that it's correct. There's other intelligent life forms on other planets. One of the universe is so vast. It's like, there's hundreds of billions of galaxies, hundreds of billions, or like and each galaxy has like 100 billion stars. It's like 100 billion times 100 billion. And then there's many planets, many of these stars have planets. So there's like, I don't know, millions of trillions of planets that we know of in the universe. So yes, conditions I believe that the Earth is the only planet among this, the whatever the 9 or so in our solar system with you advanced life, okay, advanced thinking life like ours, conscious life. But among trillions of other planets, there's other places where advanced life forms exist.
Yeah, beautiful. Can we have you sit still for just a sec and have one of your favorite teachers, an angel, some loving being come in? You don't have to share any of those details, but get a topic. It's like reaching a hand into a hat. It's Kentucky Derby Day and we're drawing horses. Reaching a hand into the hat and pulling out a new topic, but you're letting some favorite unconditional love figure come in and suggest a beautiful topic.
Well, the topic that's suggested, which is basically a very advanced Tibetan meditation, but so simple, is when the sky is blue, largely blue, to just look at the sky and merge your mind with the sky and just let the thoughts pass by like clouds in the sky. It's very simple, but it can be very advanced and direct way of taking you into that taking one into the unborn space. So that is what is offered. Also, the elements are very powerful, and it can be powerful as well to sit by the ocean and just watch the waves. and know that the waves arise from the ocean, they're made of the ocean. And in a similar way, thoughts arise from the mind and then go back into the vastness of the mind. They disappear just like a wave.
I'll do 5 random quotes. Now, this could be Einstein, Carl Jung, Winnie the Pooh, Eckhart Tolle, really
So
anyone. I've got 18 pages of quotes here. I'm going to pick 3 randomly as I can. They could be a Hollywood movie quote from
well,
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
since you mentioned Einstein,
Oh,
Einstein has a quote that people can look up, which is, first of all, I've studied in many of the religious traditions with masters, not only in Buddhism, but Albert Einstein said Buddhism is the only religion compatible with the modern scientific mind.
mm,
I would assert that the mystical aspects of like Islam, Sufism, and the mystical traditions within Hinduism, the more advanced teachings can also be compatible. But the Dalai Lama himself says, hey, if there's a conflict between Buddhism and science, then Buddhism should give way and accept what science says.
I like it. Okay, here are 3 quotes. I'd love to get a reaction to any of them, one of them, or just something entirely new. Joshu from way back. I'll make up the date. 756 BC. I'm making that up. But Joshu, Zen master, or Zhao Zhao in China. Searching causes one's income to be late. There's one. Uh, Marcus Aurelius just jumped out. I'll read it. The world is mere change, and this life opinion. Okay, and last one, Einstein. We shall require a substantially new manner of thinking if mankind is to survive. Which one or any of them would you like to react to?
Well, let's start with Einstein. We need a new kind of thinking. And again, this is part of what Jonas Salk was plugging with,
Mm.
which is thinking that emerges from a disciplined mind that's aware of scientific method and logic, that has the capability of resting in the unborn state, so that you have emerging a co-creation between the unborn state and a disciplined mind which knows the facts about important issues that face humankind. So that is the answer that Jonas Salk would give Albert Einstein as to the nature of the new kind of thinking that we need on the planet for humankind to survive. And Jonas Salk thought that populations follow the S curve and that our population would hit the top of the S curve when it reaches like about 13 billion people. So we have maybe another 2 generations or something until to bring about, in his view, a change in the consciousness of the planet.
This,
Otherwise, the complexities of this enormous population and the results of our not embodying this new way of thinking will lead to problems for humankind.
I love that answer. And I'm gonna in a second ask you to compare the 60s, 70s, 90s, whatever decade or era, what you've noticed for awareness. Has it been an ebb and flow? Are we more awake now? Are we paying attention better now than ever before from your perspective? But I'm going to mention real quick, I don't ask too many big picture questions from angels, but there's an angel named Dale who coached an Olympic athlete we all know, won a lot of golds from the 70s or 80s. Leave it at that. I asked a big picture question. If mankind wanted to make everybody laugh here, get jiggy with it. If mankind wanted to pay attention, everybody at once, setting their intent with respecting their free will. So everybody was actually interested in opening up more and paying attention more and more consciousness coming in. How fast would it take for humanity to get jiggy with it? The answer was 3 hours, and that answer was from 10 or 12 years ago. So, with that as sort of a precursor to the question, what was the 60s like, the 70s? Do you feel that mankind was super open back then? Is it today? Is it the 80s? When was it that we were the most open, in your opinion?
It's a really good question. There are different times of openness. So the 60s was an open time for many people and into the popular culture at that time with spiritual exploration and drugs and free love and breaking down taboos of sort of the 50s and the inspiration of John Kennedy, like as president. But then there was disillusionment on the political level with the Vietnam War that came in. I think now there's more advanced spiritual teachings that are available to people in humankind, and I think that's an important prerequisite. Then we need shows like yours and things to reach people and to impel them to study what's out there. But there's much more wisdom out there broadly available to humankind than ever before in history, because of the internet and people can get advanced teachings. They can see videos of great masters of the 20th century. So I think the prospects are good, but there's going to be important catalyzing moments. I don't, someone said 3 hours. Well, I don't know what really catalyzed it. There was a movie in the early 60s called The Day the Earth Stood Still,
Mhm.
um, where the ship comes down and the spaceship comes down from another planet, and humans can't touch it because it's tougher than diamonds, and they chant something Sira Nevada Nicte, and the earth stands still. So say you could safely shut off all electricity or something without causing planes to fall, and you had some miraculous demonstration of worldly power. And then that group then gave meditation instructions and energy to everyone. Well, maybe in 3 hours, something like that could transform humankind. But I don't see what force is going to make the earth stand still globally like that.
I had one fun one that I thought was possible. If everybody woke up or at a certain time, everybody could start seeing light on everything. It doesn't mean you have to live that way, but brilliant light, rainbow light. The more the person was open and flowing and loving, the more light. But if the person was about to rob a bank, no light. That would make life a little bit easier for some of our decision making, and it might help us slow our roll a little. Who knows? I'm going to put up three angels for you. If you don't mind listening, you can just get a hug and keep it private. Any insight you want to get a compliment or insight on something private, that's fine. But if you do want to share something that they have to share with all of us, I'll put up three angels, and then I'll put up a couple figures from India, one Tibetan figure, or Buddha. Here's joy. People at home can put up their hand, treat it like a fireplace, feel what you feel, don't judge, just be in your heart. And are you feeling her vibration?
Yes,
Good. Have her do something very special for you. You don't have to share it out loud. Just say got it when you got it.
got it.
Good. And now what does she have as a reminder for all of us?
The importance each moment, no matter what's going on, to tap into and create joy and to feel that joy. The 16th Karmapa, who I was talking about, was someone like that. He
Mm.
amazed the doctors because they said they can't understand. He has all this painful stuff with late stage cancer, all these things going on in his body. He's in enormous pain, yet he stays totally joyous and blissful and shares that with the patients, with the doctors who are treating him. So joy, as much as we can generate it, yes, we have to look clearly if there's a tiger coming, and we need to run and there's danger. But having joy be our constant companion is wonderful. Joy is one of the factors of enlightenment in the Theravadan Buddhist tradition, one of the qualities we want to inculcate and not just create, but open to in our beingness and our experience of life.
Mm. Joy to the world. Charlotte, another angel. She's a teacher, and I'll leave it at that. Catch something private, get a vibration, a hug. People can ask for a hug at home. A hug is 1,000 different ways. Yummy in the tummy, a whoosh in the room, goosebump on the right arm, back of the neck feels like you're wearing a hat. Just allow, no triota. What are you getting, Michael, from Charlotte?
The message of compassion, to have compassion towards all beings, to see as best one can that there is light in even in all beings, even if they are dark beings, that unborn nature is there, but not to be foolish about it,
Hmm.
to still be practical, to still avoid harmful beings, to still make wise choices about where one wants to help and not fall into some illusory spiritual thing where you think you need to help everyone that you run into and you need to run into danger or not be careful to avoid danger. Um, but compassion is a great gift. It's a great path. It's something to express much more with our friends and with our family and loved ones, and know that it is fine to have that special love to people who are close in our lives. You know, some spiritual teachings or spiritual devotees think, oh, everyone should be the same. We need to be practical living in this human world. You know, maybe if we're in some angelic realm that all beings are the same to each of the angels, or maybe up there they still have their favorite angels they like to spend time with. But to open to compassion, to love, to generate it towards ourselves, to live in that vibration, to create that vibration, but to be wise also at the same time to the ways of the world so that we can advance in our intentions and not get hurt.
I have a guardian angel photo next. Her name is Minn, like Minnesota, the Lakota Sioux word for water. It's a silhouette of an angel, but I have a quote from a Netflix film. I can't remember which one, but it's a beautiful quote. I'd love to put this quote out there and let the two of you go back and forth on it a little for something as a reminder to all of us. And it touches on what you were just saying. In the end, love is what shows us life in different colors. And there's the quote. Here is Min, my guardian angel. 80,000 of us have her as a guardian angel. And Dr. Karen Wyatt, Dr. Karen Wyatt, episode 110 in August of 2024, shared in her appearance on the show that this is the angel all in white at the foot of her bed when she was 8 years old that materialized, and she was safe in bed and woke up in the middle of the night and saw the angel. She knew she wanted to be a doctor, a physician for the rest of her life at that point. And here she is coming on the show, retired physician, who then got to meet her for 30 minutes as a human on Redondo Beach. So I'll let you chat with Min, connect with Min, but catch a lot of Aloha, Hawaii if you like Maui or wherever you like. And people at home, you can leave your eyes on her, close your eyes if you want, see the beach, but listen to her and catch answers for any question. But if you're nervous or just want to practice a little, just be like, what do I need to know in life right now? And hear a very gentle voice, a very loving voice. Michael, what have you got for us?
So both Maui and Kauai are beautiful places where nature feels so loving and gentle and joyous. And if we can, again, tune into moments like that, even go there, watch a movie of it, but to tune into that feeling of life as loving and present and gentle and joyous and almost filled with a sense of perfume. And as the expression went, being present allows you to see things in all its colors, which means in all of its, you're noticing the color, the energy of things, life becomes much more alive. And and we're living in that joy and in that presence and in that sense that nature is friendly and hospitable and loving.
Hmm. Okay, Thich Nhat Hanh for you. And get something private. If you don't mind catching a new incense, even if you've lit incense at your end, catch one from Vietnam that's distinct. Even hear chanting or music from a Vietnamese temple behind you. And he'll have a very gentle, private something for you. But after that, please catch something for all of us.
There is value in being concerned with a sense of justice of things and to be aware of justice and injustice and the way people are treated and to treat people in a just way and to be aware of injustice that's created against different groups like the Vietnamese people who were seeking their independence from France, and then the US stepped in and took the place of the French, and they wanted their independence. And Vietnam is actually now very welcoming to Americans and a lovely place. But, we've treated it very harshly. And one can be aware of social justice and make a commitment and spend some time of one's life force and energy fighting for social justice. But also, it's a choice, so one's not required to do that. And if one does do it, it should be done in a way that has a sense of nobility and compassion and wisdom to it. So it's not just done in some mindless, stupid way that we've seen many manifestations of on this planet. And again, for people who don't want to get involved and want to stay with their focused on their family or focused on their spiritual practice or focused on their career, they have every right to make, one of those choices and not become a fighter for social justice, or to choose what times when in their life they want to do that and when in their life they don't want to do that.
Brilliant. Couple more figures for you. The one on the wall, but I've got a close up. The Divine Mother out of India, her ride, the tiger, action, 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 divine deity like on everyone's team though. If you would with your left hand, you can feel soft shampooed fur as if the tiger is standing next to you. More like a tiger standing next to you, you feel the fur. Yep. You can feel soft fur, but share something back and forth. Get a compliment or hear advice on some front. And just say got it when you're fully connected and you feel a very soft shampoo fur, totally opposite of jaguar spirit out of like the Amazon. Got the fur?
Yes. Well, it also reminds me of this energy when I was at a picnic with some Tibetan masters, including a young reincarnated one named Kamtrul Rinpoche, and there was a caged tiger, and it had so much for power. It was going back and forth in this cage. So there is that kind of power that's available to us as well as human beings to assert power, again, to fight for social justice. Again, I'm not advocating or telling people they need to do that, but it's a choice, or to move forward in one's spiritual practice or to move forward in one's career. There is that tiger energy. We're more focused, we're more committed, we're bringing our energies to bear on something in a very strong way. So the tiger energy can represent that for us. My son is Tiger Year. When I was in India, and he was young, there could be these snarling street dogs. There were many street dogs, and I could be a little scared of them. And I remember my son was maybe 3 years old, and he saw this dog, and he picked up this metal rod that he saw on the ground and started walking towards it, and the dog just ran away because it felt like my son, who is born in the tiger year, has tiger energy and could have, even just as a 3-year-old, the dog didn't want to see what it would feel like to get hit by a
Hmm.
metal rod. And then speaking just, okay, why not? My son was someone who, when he was very little, was there with many of the great Tibetan masters, and he was someone who was seeing lights, a very particular kind that it described in Tibetan texts, and wanting them to go away because he was finding them annoying, but they were lights that were around every place
Hmm.
quite often.
Well, that's funny that
Now
that
they're the kind of lights that one cultivates in one of the advanced Tibetan practices.
yes, and that's funny that that is where we've arrived because I have technically two photos. I'll show the other one, but it's the brighter one if they're both bright. But here's one photo, but here's the same object and just a slightly different bit of light hitting it. And if you could allow this to be universal consciousness, the Om, the unstruck bell, the allowing for all there is moment right now, which colors are jumping out at you? And if you could allow angels and figures from India and the tiger and everybody, love and above, to take you somewhere, which colors are striking you the most right now?
The violet.
And if your eyes are shut, if you could allow cosmic figures to come in, but Joy the angel, a few India figures will be the ambassadors. It could be a light being named Grace, who is orange light. She's enthusiasm, fantastic. It could be specific types of loving interdimensional galactic beings, whether Arcturian, Pleiadian, Omega, Andromeda, Orion, blah, blah, blah. But have one. I would recommend a woman from Sirius dressed in green, flowing outfit, pinpoints of light all around her that are like Christ consciousness diamonds and very tight with forests. If you just say got it, you're not going to have to share any other details, but just sit for a few seconds. And then if you could come back with a final message for us that's very broad from these experiences, just say got it if you're connected now to a new loving being kind of on the more cosmic front.
Got it.
And have a little bit of fun, have a rendezvous for a meditation or pour a cup of tea and have her or him show up. That's fine. You'd be surprised. But if you will allow for some light to pass through you, it can be through an angel or through a former teacher or Buddha. Either way, catch an extra, I'll be very American, jolt of beauty. Ziji, we got to use that word again. I love my favorite Tibetan word, Ziji. Ziji, I believe it's sparkle or brilliance. And when you're ready, if you could come back with a very succinct message for us. And is it okay to be in the heart with all that's happening that we're witnessing around us, abroad, domestically, in other countries, and so on? Uh, what's your message on that front? What is the universe's message for all of us?
That it's safe to be in one's heart. One can act from one's heart. One can act to defend oneself from one's heart. One can live in that space of love. One can be like the samurai warriors battling from the space of love. But opening to that space of love lets us be also in the presence of the unborn, the uncreate, in which we are aware of the subtlety, angels, and subtle energies around us, and can act as heroes in our own life. So to be a hero in one's own life, loving oneself, living and existing in love, making choices, enjoying each moment filled with joy, and life being very simple, to embody these qualities that we want to experience in the moment now and not creating a long path to accomplish joy or to accomplish peace, but learning to feel and embody peace, to embody joy, and to bring those qualities into each moment so that life is peaceful and miraculous and joyous and wonderful. And from that place, we can experience what's going on in the world, the hunger, the starvation, the war, the tragedies, the joys, the celebrations, but do it from that place of inner peace and inner joy and inner completeness. And from that place, the choices we are likely to make are more likely to be for our own benefit and the benefit of others if we choose to get involved in some way.
So it's okay to say yes to the universe, yes to one's own heart, and to use the treasure map because we're the treasure, the X on the map. It's here.
To use the treasure map. And again, if one wants to protest the policies of Donald Trump or wants to be silent in the face of those policies or wants to applaud them, and that's what's true to one's nature, one can do that. But again, don't disturb that sense of inner peace and joy, um, was a lesson that we learned in the 70s, that even if we were like fighting for social justice, for civil rights, for against the Vietnam War, that we also wanted to be doing so from a place of satisfaction and joy. That was part of the
Mm.
lifestyle tradition of the left at that point. But the lessons of that, where we also, knew the history of conflicts and had refined opinions and knowledge and discriminating wisdom about the Vietnam War. It's very different than the way the young generation seems to be operating with their social activism, which seems that they think it's blessed by ignorance and you don't really need to know anything. You just need to know white is bad, oppressors, black and brown are good, whatever they do is justified. Well, reality doesn't really work that way. Those are certainly not high spiritual principles. White people and black people and brown people are all um, guilty of bad things and are capable of good things. And I would subscribe to Martin Luther King's view that a man will be judged by his character and not the color of his skin. And I think the new left-wing dogma that absolves black and brown people from any wrongdoing because they're oppressed, and that victimizes or makes wrong all white people is pretty delusional and foolish philosophy.
Would you leave us with a mantra that you have to repeat 3 times, but would you allow it to be a very fresh, short mantra from the heart, perhaps about the heart? What mantra do you want to share with us as we sign off?
It's a mantra for purifying the body, the speech, and the mind. It's a very simple one. Om Ah Hung. Om Ah Hung. Om Ah Hung. And probably on the internet, if you ask for Om Ah Hung teachings, there'll be some things there.
Michael Jaliman, thank you very much. You've been a very special guest. I've very much appreciated you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Blessings.